In November 1957, deputies in Plainfield, Wisconsin followed a single receipt to a quiet farmhouse on the edge of town. Inside, they found the missing body of Bernice Worden, and evidence that revealed one of the most disturbing crime cases in American history. What they uncovered would later inspire movies like Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Silence of the Lambs. This is the story of Ed Gein, the man behind the farmhouse that changed how America saw crime forever. Bernice Worden was 58 years old, the well-known owner of Worden's hardware store in Plainfield. She'd lived in the area her whole life and was trusted by nearly everyone in town. 3 years earlier, another woman, Mary Hogan, had vanished without a trace. She owned a small tavern just a few miles away. Both women were part of the same quiet, rural community where people left their doors unlocked and trusted their neighbors. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Your support helps us keep bringing you true crime stories like this one. Tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. It was the first day of deer season, November 16, 1957. Plainfield was mostly empty, hunters out in the woods. Bernice Worden opened her store that morning like usual. When her son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, passed by later, the lights were still on but the store was empty. The cash register was open, and there was a smear of blood on the floor. On the counter, Frank found a sales slip written out to one customer, Ed Gein, for a gallon of antifreeze. That piece of paper became the key to unraveling a crime that would shock the nation. Plainfield was a small rural town of fewer than 700 people. Everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where people waved on Main Street and showed up to help when a barn needed fixing. Ed Gein was one of those familiar faces. He did odd jobs, helped neighbors repair fences, and sometimes looked after their kids. Most thought he was strange but harmless. Ed was born in 1906 to George and Augusta Gein. His father drank heavily and struggled to keep work. His mother, Augusta, was strict and deeply religious. She taught her sons that the world was full of sin and that women, except herself, were the source of evil. The Gein family lived on an isolated farm outside town. Visitors were rare, and Augusta controlled nearly every part of their lives. When George died in 1940, Augusta's influence grew even stronger. 4 years later, Ed's older brother Henry was found dead on the farm after a brush fire. The cause was listed as asphyxiation, but neighbors noticed bruises on his head. No charges were ever filed. In December 1954, Mary Hogan disappeared from her tavern in Plainfield. Police found blood on the floor and an empty cartridge case, but no body. For years, no one knew what happened to her. When people in town mentioned Mary, Ed Gein would sometimes laugh and say, "She's not missing, she's back at the farm." Most assumed it was a bad joke. They were wrong. After Bernice Worden vanished, the antifreeze receipt gave deputies probable cause to question Ed. When they couldn't find him in town, officers drove out to his property that evening. The house sat alone, dark and silent. Deputies searched the outbuildings first. In a small shed, they spotted something hanging from the rafters. At first, they thought it was a deer. When they got closer, they realized it was Bernice Worden. The discovery ended any hope she was alive. Sheriff Arch Schley ordered the farmhouse secured and a full search of the property. The deputies who entered the house found decay, clutter, and a stench they never forgot. The rooms were filled with trash, old newspapers, and broken furniture. But 2 rooms were spotless: Augusta Gein's bedroom and the parlor she once used. Ed had sealed them off and kept them untouched since her death in 1945. The rest of the house showed signs of a disturbing obsession. When questioned, Ed Gein spoke politely, calling officers "sir." He admitted to some things calmly, like it was routine. He said he had visited local cemeteries, dug up graves, and taken bodies that reminded him of his mother. He said he used the remains to make household items and keepsakes. Deputies quietly checked the cemeteries Ed mentioned. Several graves were disturbed, and some coffins were empty. It confirmed that Ed's crime case went far beyond murder. It involved years of grave robbing. Families who thought their loved ones were resting in peace learned the graves had been violated. Psychiatrists examined Ed and diagnosed him with schizophrenia. The court ruled him unfit to stand trial and committed him to Central State Hospital, 10 years later, when doctors declared him competent, he was tried for Bernice Worden's murder. The judge found him guilty but not responsible by reason of insanity. Ed spent the rest of his life in mental institutions. In March 1958, just months after Ed was sent to the hospital, the farmhouse burned to the ground. The fire started early in the morning, and by the time firefighters arrived, nothing was left but the foundation. No cause was ever confirmed. Many locals believed it was arson, but no one was charged. The auction to sell the property was canceled, and the land was later sold at a fraction of its value. For the people of Plainfield, the fire erased a place they never wanted to see again. As the fire cooled, newspapers ran stories about the Plainfield Ghoul. Hollywood soon borrowed from those reports. Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Silence of the Lambs all took parts of the case and turned them into fiction. Ed Gein became a cultural myth, America's face of horror, though in truth, he had only 2 confirmed murders. By the mid-1980s, Ed lived quietly in the Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison. He followed daily routines, read magazines, and tended the hospital garden. On July 26, 1984, he died of respiratory failure at 77. He was buried in Plainfield Cemetery near the same graves he had once disturbed. His headstone was later stolen and never replaced. For the town of Plainfield, the case never truly ended. The people who lived there lost their sense of peace. Tourists and journalists continued to visit, but locals tried to move on. The true story was never about fame or movies. It was about 2 women, Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. Both were respected members of their community, remembered as kind and hardworking. Their names deserve to be remembered above the man who took their lives. The Ed Gein crime case showed how evil can grow quietly in ordinary places. In Plainfield, the warning signs were there, but people looked past them. It proved that danger doesn't always come from strangers. It can come from someone the whole town knows by name. If someone in your neighborhood made a strange joke about a missing person, would you take it seriously or ignore it like the people of Plainfield did? Tell us in the comments what you would have done if you'd heard Ed Gein say, "She's not missing, she's back at the farm." If you found this story informative, hit the like button so more viewers can discover it. Pause. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated whenever we post new true crime stories. Check the pinned comment below for the full case timeline and verified sources used in this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Click subscribe so you don't miss our next true crime story.